Welcome back to the channel, guys. So for those who have followed for any period of time, you've noticed there's been a bit of a deficit in the amount of videos that I've been producing. And the reason has not necessarily been that I haven't wanted to, but because I'm starting to become a little bit pedantic in the videos and the topics and whatnot. And I was hoping if I just took a rest and sat back, let the channel reach who it's supposed to reach, because it's not up to me, it's up to the Lord. Inform those who are willing to pay attention, and then once I start seeing things happening on the ground like I am today, I would eventually get around to making videos like these again, basically addressing realities on the ground and trying to extrapolate what that means as far as scripture is concerned. And obviously, I'm not a prophet, I'm not a soothsayer, I'm not somebody who has any special insight beyond what the Bible has to say about things, but we have a geopolitical situation that is not only obviously lining up perfectly with what the Bible has to say as far as the layout of the world, not only right before the tribulation, but as it commences, and everything seems to be set up so wonderfully. I mean that facetiously, of course. That being said, before I get into all of this, I want you guys all to know and to understand that regardless of what our eyes and ears see and how difficult and horrible these tragedies on the ground, shootings, invasions, wars, takeovers, seizures, etc., these are all actually wonderful signs that our Lord is just around the corner. So before I get into this, I would like to say that it would behoove any and all who are faithful to the Lord to not let these things get to your feelings, not let them become something that you take personally, and continue to trudge on in great hope that the Lord truly is right around the corner. So we're stuck in our feelings in this particular era, and we are incredibly worldly. So I know that though that warning or hope for those who may be watching this may and likely will fall, majority wise at least, on deaf ears, that doesn't mean that the few of you who understand what I'm saying because you're listening to the Spirit can't understand that for whatever this seems horrible, it all just points to a glorious end, and we're all a part of that so long as we hold on. So that being said, what's been going on these last few days? Well, whole bunch of stuff. We can get into the Epstein stuff. We can get into the the obviousness of Trump essentially starting to show more and more of who he actually is versus who we hoped, or the conservative side of the United States hoped he would be. And things keep continuing to march apace right in the right direction. So the biggest thing that stuck out to me in the recent past, starting 2026, is our invasion and seizure of Venezuela's oil, and of course the arrest of her president, which there's some other things in the background as to what that may involve. I know there's been some rumblings about the Dominion voting machines and all that stuff, relevant as far as geopolitical concerns, but not relevant as far as the faith side of things. So what I want to focus on actually is the fact that if the suggestions are true that South America is sitting on oil reserves larger than the Middle East, we essentially just pulled the pin on the entirety of the Middle East's #1 income. Now, for those who have been paying attention and are trying to see these things objectively, for every bit that obviously, yes, there is quite a bit of evil from that portion of the world coming towards the West, we inspired a lot of it. Our government has been up to so many evil things for the last 70, 80, 90 years that have led to the subjugation of many of those countries. And they also have evil leadership. Let's be completely honest. This is not 100% our responsibility. The people, when the Shah of Iran was basically kicked out and the mullahs were put in power by our CIA and our government, the people of that country had every opportunity to rise up, and they didn't. So the people are culpable, the leaders are culpable, our country's culpable. Nobody is innocent necessarily. That being said, much with the same situation that we have on the ground with China. Part of the reason why the United States doesn't go to war with China is because we buy things from each other. We buy and sell oil, technologies, all types of technologies, all spread throughout our infrastructure. It's actually quite amazing how much we rely upon China. Not to mention all of our parts networks and suppliers and whatnot. Like it's quite incestuous, if we're being completely honest. And for all the naysay and all the talk of how China's our enemy and we need to work against them, truth of the matter is we keep reaching into each other's back pockets. And that is the reason why we have maintained somewhat of a steady, though uneasy truce with that part of the world for such a long time. And I don't see it necessarily ending anytime soon. But that being said, if in fact what is being said is true about Venezuela, we just got rid of the only tie remaining between the West and the Middle East that would allow for even, again, an unsteady peace or an uneasy peace, much like we have with China. So now, if we're paying attention, we know their religion, being purely a machination of Satan, is designed specifically to be offensive to the West. And as I've opined before, this all leads to three major coalitions of those southern nations of the former revived Roman Empire coming together and supporting the opponent, the adversary, the point man, designed basically to take the brunt of the potential negative view that Antichrist may be gaining from Christians and be able to put it on the king of the south, is what he's called in the Bible, put it in his lap and make him responsible, at least as far as the world is concerned. And by and large, from every indication from both Daniel and Revelation, this particular ploy works exceedingly well. And the West is convinced that this Muslim leader that the Bible is not ascribing as the Antichrist, who many people today are convinced is a Muslim, that's another story, and I've already discussed that before. But when he comes to the fore and he makes threats against the West, that will be the perfect instigation for Antichrist to not only come to power here in Babylon illegally, but also to do the same with those seven horned leaders of the northern portion of revived Rome, to basically come together and support Antichrist even before he actually comes to the fore. They were, as we're told in Revelation 13, 17, etc., they were put in power for that 1 hour specifically to hand it over to the beast. So, as I've said before, we are likely to see very Trump-like leaders start to rise in Europe here in almost no time, as a direct result of the purposeful, and I say purposeful intentionally because I think we're all, on the same level about the fact that all of this non-conforming immigration, non-integrating immigration that's been forced upon the West, both here in the States and Europe at large, is 100% intentional. This was all designed specifically to put enemies on our borders. We cared more about their feelings than we did about facts, and we essentially suggested that they not integrate and that they just come here, create little enclaves, and essentially form their own mini nation within ours, which is the most asinine thing in the world. But of course, when you have evil leaders, evil things like this happen. So what can we say? We should grow to expect this, but there's nothing natural about what's going on. And I want everybody to understand that all of this is contrived and intentional, designed specifically to bring about a situation where the Middle East has no choice but to attack us out of their own perception that now we've gotten rid of the only thing that's keeping us at relative peace. Not only that, in the last few days, although there's no direct information, obviously, because of the situation on the ground in Iran, as of, I believe, yesterday, day before perhaps, the internet was essentially blacked out. The ability to see what was actually going on the ground has been severely hampered, and the only information that we're getting, unfortunately, is from Mossad agents, usually on X, Twitter. And I'm sorry, but Mossad to me is the same thing as CIA. None of them are to be trusted, and it's 100% a psyop designed specifically to inflame the peoples of Iran, to overthrow their leadership, and eventually bring in their super hyper-religious Mahdi, or Messiah, however you want to put it, so as to get the ball rolling on this grand excursion that we're about to see take place. Now, as I've mentioned before, the 6 months of silence, or the half hour of silence from Revelation 8:2, if in fact the 2026 fall start for the tribulation is accurate, would mean that the 7 seals start to become removed right around the springtime, and the 7th seal is officially removed sometime in the fall of this year. Obviously, a lot of things have to happen, but the fact, again, that we just stuck the biggest possible spear into our former half-hearted allies' back, that we are basically guaranteeing that we are going to see some pretty severe uprisings, both here in the States and in Europe, that will bring about the situation that the people of all of these nations band together and demand change and a leadership, and that super powerful leader will literally give them everything they want, at least ostensibly, on the surface initially. And there goes the game. So I guess what I'm saying is, with these southern nations starting to be subjected the way that they are, with the West becoming more and more outright racist, and when I say outright racist, I don't mean that, let's be completely honest, cultures are different. People are they just don't get along. We look at the statue in Daniel, we see those 10 toes, 3 of clay, 7 of iron, obviously lining up with the 10 horns of the beast once it's finalized, showing 3 brittle, 7 strong. But then there's a noted statement in those verses in Daniel that go out of its way to say that these cultures just will not mix regardless of what Antichrist tries. And this has always been the case naturally within the world ever since the Lord decided to scatter the languages and spread people out throughout the land intentionally, so that each nation would have the ability to create its own sovereignty, have its own safety and security, and potentially create places where faith could thrive. And that was the whole point. Now that we're seeing the degeneration of these socio-political boundaries, essentially, that have kept people in relatively good behavior, now I think is the time. Obviously, we have some domestic issues going on here too with ICE and that whole shooting thing that, unfortunately, it seems like everybody was in the wrong there, and we're all going to be tempted to want to take sides on those things. These are specifically designed to emotionally perturb us. So we have to remain as objective as possible. We have to ignore what is being forced at us and look deeper, look behind the scenes, and refuse to buy the line that's being sold to us. Always doing everything we can to look and see what it is the Lord is actually up to in the background, and always be looking for his deliverance, because truly there is no answer to any of this until Christ comes back. And that's a good thing. It's intentional. But we're about to be forced into a situation where the world will no longer be able to be agnostic about the Lord Jesus Christ. And so I'm praying and hoping, as always, that you guys are learning the word, growing in the word, and becoming stronger in your faith now while things are relatively easy, because the clock is ticking. We don't have much time left. So I'm going to keep making these updates on the ground as I see them materialize, because I think this is a little bit obscured, but as things progress from here, it's going to become so painfully obvious that the majority of this channel will be taken up pointing out realities on the ground that that news and culture will be ignoring intentionally, because they are wholly on Satan's side. Comment, like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if I'm crazy, because these things, they don't seem to be talked about. And I'm seeing gas prices start to drop. Obviously, the people who are involved with that takeover, there are a lot of the same names that are involved with this Israeli-American supposed alliance, I should say, between the two. None of this is surprising. None of this should be shaking us up. All the same actors, all the same, support Israel at all costs people are involved like crazy. And in fact, I'll close here by saying that one of the most obvious signs that this is truly part of the end is the fact that there is some information out there showing that Israel has had a plan for Venezuela because of their supposed anti-Semitic stance towards Israel, that they've been looking forward to this particular removal and forcing of the chess pieces to be moved around on the board. This is all intentional and, again, part of the design, and we shouldn't trick ourselves into thinking that there's a good guy or a bad guy on the ground. Everybody is culpable, everybody is guilty, and the only answer to this is the Lord. And we shouldn't be fooled into taking sides, regardless of what our eyes and ears may be telling us. So stay sober, stay alert, keep your eyes open, head on swivel, so on and so forth. But more than anything, be trusting the Lord. This is all intentional. You are put in the position you are very much on purpose. None of this is an accident. And your best bet is to continue that upward trajectory of growth, because very soon, every single one of you who have put your foot down in faith and have decided to stick it out, you will be called upon to speak, whether it costs you or not. But this will be to your great reward, his glory, and our eternal benefit. So stay strong, people. Let's do this. Anyway, I'm gonna cut this off. Talk to you guys soon. I'll let you know when I see the next big developments start to take place, and we will discuss accordingly then. And hopefully we're all, like I said, faithful, alert, aware, and consistently growing regardless of what we may experience here on earth. We'll talk to you soon, guys.